Hi guys, coming to you from Bali, Indonesia today, and I'd like to do a bit of a wrap up of what's been going on with my health and healing and sometimes lack thereof in the last 6 months to 1 year. So, to put it quickly, about a year ago, things were going pretty well. I'd started working on the Lyme documentary. Then I went to Hong Kong and the Philippines for about a month, and I noticed my health was doing pretty good then. I was still dealing with some digestive trouble and chronic constant headaches, but I didn't have problems or not significant chronic fatigue. It's hard for me to say how regular people feel versus me, who's been dealing with health problems for about 15 years, but I could function. I could drive a motorcycle. Um, I felt like my body was getting rest when I slept and was waking up energized, and I wasn't dealing with um, the kinds of issues I'm dealing now in terms of whole body pains, muscles, joints, neurological problems all over my body. And then I returned from the Philippines, and within about 2 to 3 weeks, I started feeling this pretty severe pain in my belly, and just a migraine came on. And that was pretty disappointing and shocking to me. I wasn't expecting that. And in the months that followed, that just never went away, and so the migraine continued. It was very difficult. Both physically and mentally, to feel like I'm crashing again. But for a while there, I still continued to have energy. I was able to finish working on the documentary until like May or something. The first sign of like more severe trouble, even more severe trouble, was after I did worked for about 36 hours, I believe it was, on the film in 3 days. And at the end of those 3 days, I remember coming home and feeling that fibromyalgia pain. So this, like every muscle, every joint was struggling and was painful. And I thought, oh, I clearly overworked myself in those 3 days. It was really intense, but I thought, oh, maybe it's like a bit of a flu bug. It's gonna be okay. But things didn't get better. Started being a bit scary, but my energy was still okay. So over the summer, started getting, really overwhelmed with all this, feeling like I'm losing my ground, whatever I'd gained um, over 2015, where I'd been feeling better and better, and after my bioresonance treatments, and where I'd been very hopeful that I was finally on the mend. So I started looking into what I can do. At the end of the summer, end of August, I went by myself with a backpack to Peru for an ayahuasca retreat where we did 5 ceremonies. Um, it was really, really difficult for me. I realized how sick I still am. There was a lot of my ceremonies were a lot about pain. I found out a lot of things about myself on that retreat and in the weeks that followed and in the months that followed, which were very interesting and kind of gave me a sense of maybe why my body had been weakened throughout my whole life, and kind of the changes that I can implement in my life in order to make sure that that doesn't happen again. And but it did not help me feel better physically. However, I mean, I went to Peru by myself, as I said, with a backpack, so the energy was still okay, and the pain was still okay, um, where I was able to undertake something like that. About a month after returning, so at the very end of September, all hell broke loose. I started completely crashing. So again, the energy was, I was back to feeling that the chronic fatigue that had plagued me for so long, especially in recent years. And the fibromyalgia just came on super strong. The neurological pain, the migraine still hadn't subsided from March 2016, and it was just like straight down to hell, basically. It was very difficult on me, very difficult on Yan as well. We were not expecting this, and I got pretty depressed about it for a while there. Because I feel like I've been fighting for years now, trying to get better. I thought I was better. I thought there was just a few things to fix, and it's very difficult on the mental health as well. I ended up doing, at the end of November, my second 10-day Vipassana meditation retreat, which really had a beautiful, beautiful effect on my mental health, which was really great in terms of letting go of feeling depressed and trying to really come into my own and really come into like understanding that I'm really a great fighter in this, and as much as I own everything that's happened to me, and even being sick, I stopped feeling down about myself about it. Stopped is a strong word. I still have some, downer moments, but now they're down to, maybe 1% of the time versus, October, November was really, really difficult. A lot of depression then. That said, my physical health was and continues to be very poor. And so we decided with Yan that we needed to do something about it, because the winter was coming along in Montreal, and the winter is very difficult. And in the state that I am, it's hard for me to go outside to be independent at all. It's very difficult for me to take care of my basic needs. I haven't cooked for about 4 months now. Things like cutting is much too painful for me. Um, I have difficulty opening bottles. I have difficulty standing for very long. I have difficulty walking for very long, or for not that long anyways, either. The migraine just kept getting worse and worse, really to the point of driving me completely, or almost completely insane. I started having to take painkillers very regularly, some stronger codeine, cannabis oil was helping as well. And when I say helping, like, don't get me wrong, it isn't like it takes it away and I'm comfortable and capable of functioning. Not at all. It's just helps it just enough to not completely go crazy and not to be banging my head against the wall. But it continues to be very difficult. So we moved to Bali, where Jan was able to take time off work for the health of his family. It's part of his convention, and he's here to work on our businesses and the business that he has with two of his partners. He's here to dedicate himself to my healing as well, so that he can better care for me. Because as I mentioned, I have to eat good food in order to heal, and yet I'm unable to cook for myself. So all that falls on Yan, and he's very wonderful about it, and he's the best caregiver I could ever ask for. But it does take time, and it takes toll, and we're both in a pretty post-traumatic stress situation, or not even post-traumatic, just traumatic stress. The last 15 years being ill have been difficult, and specifically the last 3 or 4 years where I've been, incapacitated sick and dealing with the Lyme disease and the treatments, and it really has a non-negligible effect on us, not only me, on him as well. And we, in so many ways, we've just been broken by all this. And what's nice about our situation is that when you get so broken over and over and over again, and yet you continue to, and you move forward and you surpass that, what's nice is you get to rebuild yourself the way you want. And so in so many ways, we've both had to, rebuild ourselves kind of from scratch. And so I'm really proud of the people that we are, and the kind of person that Jan's become. And I think of him as an example of how to treat or be around somebody who's ill and struggling. There isn't one single moment over the last few years where Jans said it was my fault, where Jans blamed me for all the extra stuff he has to do in life. He always treats it like it's an honor to be there to help me, and he. I'm very tired. It's tough to, I'm on doing this video. He, yeah, contrary to what people might think, he's proud to be here to help me. He's proud to be there for me, and we see my illness as, kind of a third part of our relationship. There's me, there's him, and then there's my illness, and we're hoping to get rid of that threesome, sooner rather than later. But the problem isn't me. The problem is the illness. The illness is happening to me, and that's such a difficult thing to truly um, understand and to incorporate, or to, what's the word I'm looking for? Bref, incorporate as a sick person, for me to separate myself from that and say it's not me. It's happening to me. It's been a really big lesson for me to learn, and it isn't. It's an interesting thing because it's happening to me, and yet I want to take full responsibility for it in order to be able to heal. And so I own it, and it's mine to deal with at the end of the day. And so I need to put the best conditions around myself to be able to heal, and yet I also have to be separate from the illness and know that it isn't me. Because if I think it's me, then downward spiral. Why me? I suck. I'm still sick. It's been 15 years. I've tried, so many things. Worked so hard to get better, and yet I'm not. So if I start personalizing that, it could be difficult. So it's a whole psychology of illness. It's very complicated, and I hope to get into that more eventually. But that's a bit of the rundown. So we're here in Bali, searching for healing. I'm doing a protocol that's all about gut healing. Right now I'm going to be starting to attack SIBO, so small intestine bacteria overgrowth, which came back positive for me on my test. And then there'll be more interventions after that. And the healing has to happen for Jan as well. As I said, trauma of illness is very, very real. And sometimes I get a sense that if you're smiling and if you, make the best of life, which is what we've always, always tried to do, and it isn't about denial, but it's just you, for yourself, you choose to live in a space of love and happiness and not give in to the fear. Well, if you do that, I get a sense that people think, oh, well, it can't be so bad, and yet it's absolutely terrible in so many ways. I don't claim that I have it the worst in the world because, I could have ALS, or, people go through really, really terrible things in life. And so this isn't me trying to say, oh, it's the worst, and, I'm close to basically, it's really bad. It's really bad. And the fact that we smile and the fact that we make the best of it and we stick together doesn't make it not bad. Sometimes you get a sense that if you're not, closed up in a psychiatric ward in a hospital, or if you're not going to the emergency room all the time, then it can't be so bad. But to be honest, in the last few months, I've cried many tears wishing I could go to the emergency room, wishing there was help for people like me. But we really, people who have either Lyme disease or all the connective problems with that. So even something like this SIBO that I need to deal with, or mold issues, or environmental sensitivities, all that stuff. It's outside of the medical system. So it doesn't. you can't get help, unfortunately. That's the problem. And so I've cried many tears wishing that I could get help in this system. And I can't. So, got to move on, take responsibility, and find my own way in it. But, and that's what we're doing here. And, we're strong and we're powerful and we're going to make it happen. So that's my update, the Healing Nomad update from Bali.